All right, so it is that time of year again where we highlight one of my favorite organizations. Obviously, no bias. More importantly, we highlight one of my favorite guests. Again, obviously, no bias. Maria Davis-Pierre, the co-founder of Autism in Black. And we are getting ready to talk about the 5th annual conference and why this one is a little bit more special than the others. Maria, thank you for joining this week on the Medicine Monday show.
Always a pleasure to be here, husband.
Now, if we have not had a chance, maybe this is your first time watching the show or maybe listening to the podcast, this is a very familiar voice that plays on our podcast. She gives our introduction. More importantly, this is my wife, and we, again, are the co-founders of Autism in Black, and we're going to be talking about our 5th annual conference today, one that I am extremely excited about because of the changes that coming forth, right? So first of all, quick introduction for those who, if this is their first time catching this, who is Maria Davis-Pierre? More importantly, what is Autism in Black?
Sure. So I am a licensed mental health counselor here in the state of Florida, meaning I am a clinician. And we started Autism in Black in 2017. Initially, it was really from our own experiences as parents who at that time we had just one child that we were dealing with and going through the process of getting her autism diagnosis and seeing the struggle of us who had the education privilege, the financial privilege, going through these channels and being railroaded at every point of trying to get her diagnosis. So we started Autism in Black initially to just bridge that gap for Black parents like us who were going through this journey. We evolved. We've had twins, and one of them is autistic, and I've gotten my own autism diagnosis. We've added a podcast. We've added our conference, workshop. So we now work with businesses as well, bridging that gap for them and the communities that they work in. So it's evolved over time, but initially it just came from our own angst of being Black parents raising a Black autistic little girl.
You know, I think that's what's so interesting, especially with most organizations or just businesses, how a lot of times is a very small, pivotal moment that, you know, kind of spurs the business owner on. And a lot of times people don't answer the call. Right. Like as a physician, you know, I take care of patients. That's what I do. That's what I love. But I know there's a lot of physicians who don't necessarily like that aspect of care, right? Like they don't actually like doing the thing that, you know, is known of. We go into this scenario where we're struggling, we're having some issues, kind of getting diagnosis, getting services. And instead of saying like, okay, all right, we got over that hump. Thank you. We recognize that, hey, you know what? If we are experiencing these troubles, if we are experiencing these types of angst and obstacles, we can't imagine what others are doing. But when I hear that story, I always think about, man, what happens if we would have just made the decision of being comfortable, right, in our position? And I think, especially with this conference, a lot of times it's about getting people out of their comfort zone or putting people in a comfort zone because they've been so used to not being comfortable. So let's talk about the conference in and of itself, right? Because obviously, like I said, it's grown, websites, podcasts, speaking, it's grown. But when we say, hey, you know what, we want to do a conference, right? Like what was your thoughts initially before we kind of fast forward to like talking about our present day current conference?
I can say when I first thought about the conference, it was more so just building community and getting the information out there in a faster way. Instead of those one-to-ones and podcast listens, having a weekend of learning from different individuals who are in the field. So it just really started out of that and, you know, people wanting that experience and just saying, hey, we'll just do this little workshop experience for the weekend, call it a conference and see how it turns out. I definitely wasn't thinking about an annual thing. It was just more of let's just try this out and see how it works there. And apparently I undercut myself a lot in that.
So let's fast forward now, right? So we're talking about now the 5th annual conference. And let's give some details, especially for those who are thinking like, man, like, especially if you catch this, you know, because I know my YouTube podcast audience, you might catch this episode late, right? But like, if you're catching this when you're supposed to catch this, right? Like, when is the conference coming up?
So our conference is April 11th through the 13th, and we are moving into a hybrid version. So now we have in person, which is here in West Palm Beach, Florida, where we live. And then, of course, our virtual experience, which we will always keep, which is, the heart of Autism in Black, making things accessible. So yeah, April 11th through the 13th. This fifth one is one, an eye-opener. Two, I'm just so humbled and grateful because with the first one, I was like, let's have the 30 people show up and, do it for them. And in fact, we had over 200 people that year. So it showed me how much it was needed because I wasn't thinking it was going to be of that scale. And each year we just grown and grown and grown. And I had been hesitant about doing an in-person, but the community has been asking for it because our conferences are such a safe space. It's a foundational piece with us. It's making sure it's a safe space for us. And, they just wanted that community aspect in person. So we pivoted for this year and said, let's do it. Let's have that hybrid experience. So here we are.
So, and we talk about that, especially because you mentioned the fact that you're not letting go of the virtual experience, right? And I think one thing that those who, especially if they're new to the organization or the audience, recognizes that when we first started the conferences, it was all virtual. Like we came into the game saying like, we are going to do this from a virtual aspect, but not allow people to feel like, all right, this is just something that's on a Zoom call and like, I don't really have to pay attention to it. People still felt at home. They still felt comfortable. They still felt the love, even though it was through like their, mobile phone screen or computer screen or whatnot. And when we talk about this moving towards this hybrid experience, like I said, it's our first time, right? So we're going to be very excited again, Palm Beach County Convention Center. And like just the thoughts and feelings of what type of experience a person may have kind of coming like to South Florida, West Palm Beach in particular, when they come to see our conference.
One, we have tried to really hit on all the touch points that you will be interacting when you get here. We tried to ensure that we were in a space where, it wasn't far from the airport. So there is a shuttle from the airport to our host hotel. Our host hotel is actually connected to the convention center, so you don't even have to leave a building to go from the hotel to the convention center. We're also in the heart of West Palm Beach. So we're right across the street from City Place. So there's food, shopping, all of that there. So we really wanted to make sure that we were in a spot where people didn't have to really leave the area for anything. You have 3 days of experience with us, and then come evening, except on Saturday, because on Saturday we're having a party. So we want you in the building with us. But any of those other nights, go across, wind down with the other individuals at the conference and network and have community at dinner, right? So we wanted to really make sure that we had all of those touch points figured out. It's a different beast for us planning a in-person conference. So we wanted to make sure all of those small aspects we took care of.
I think it's important because when you think about just conferences in general, one thing I'm big on is a lot of times we'll have a lot of energy. Right? A lot of momentum during the conference, right? During the event. But one thing that I love about our conference, right, is we implore that come Monday, come Tuesday, come Wednesday after the conference, it's time to go to work. Now, what has been your thoughts on like really just this push on not only do people get to feel that they're in a safe space, but more importantly, that they feel that, hey, there's actually things I can learn and take action with leaving the conference?
That is so important for us because, yes, we're there building community, but we know how important that intersectionality of being Black with a disability is. And when we have to navigate society in a different way, we have to advocate in a different way. It's so important for us to teach actionable steps that you can use that day if you want it, but it's the weekend, so use it on Monday and go right into the gates letting people know that, hey, I've learned this new information. I'm going to call an IEP meeting and we're going to get some things adjusted, or I'm going to meet with my physician and get more neuroaffirming care. I'm going to talk to my job about accommodations and modifications I can have. I'm going to go to my college advisor and go and speak about accommodations and modifications, accommodations I can have at the collegiate level. So, just making sure, even I'm talking to my family now and I know how to start that conversation on, setting boundaries within my house because, I want to make sure it's a safe space for my kid. So making sure that you have those actionable steps that you can start using immediately So many people have come to our conference as parents and left and went and got tested to get their own diagnosis because they related so much to what we were talking about, right? So most of the feedback, 99.99% of the feedback, this has been life-changing for me. And that is always humbling to me to know that we are providing such resources to our community.
What should someone expect, right, when they come to the conference, right? Especially for this year, what are some of the topics that we plan on, providing and having touch points with the audience that they're able to say, like, all right, yeah, I can't wait to attend this session here?
Well, this year is a little bit different because of the climate that we are in with the United States and, the government and who's in office. So we're really focusing on organizing our community supports, so we're talking about what we should be doing in the school system, right? What we should be doing if you are a college student, what you should be doing at your job, right? How to form more community supports for your own safety, for your own self-care. So we are really organizing this year. We have sessions as far as IEP, sessions of mental health, Black fathers, right? And we're touching on it all. We usually really try to make sure with the sessions amount that we have to really try to touch on a vast array of topics.
And what I think is interesting, especially when we talk about, having a conference like this, obviously with the name Autism in Black, right? You're gonna get, some thoughts and some feelings, right? And like, what are some things that if we had to give some FAQs, right, for our listening audience to say, hey, like, is this conference for me? Can I even attend this conference, right? Because I know we get questions like that all the time. Am I allowed to attend this conference, especially for certain audiences? What are some FAQs that we want to be able to answer for our listening audience today?
Our conference is for any and everyone who wants to learn. If you are working with the Black autistic community, if you are a Black autistic individual yourself, if you're a parent to a Black autistic child, or if you are wanting to really know how to support the Black autistic community, this conference is for you. The thing that I say all the time is that our information, the resources that we do will always be centered on the Black autistic experience, but you don't have to be Black to attend, right? You need to be here because we know that there's a bigger chance of us having an interaction with someone who doesn't look like us, right? When we look at those numbers and it comes to teachers and doctors and therapists, we are in the low digits of numbers who make up that population. So we know that we have a larger chance of coming in contact with somebody who doesn't look like us. So those who don't look like us, you really need to be in the building to know how to provide that intersectional care, that culturally responsive care. So yeah, our conference is for any and everybody.
And I think that's important too, because when we get the questions, I know it's coming from a good space, right? Because they know, right? And you said it best, right? Because especially as a physician, I deal with it all the time, where the majority of patients I take care of don't look like me. Right. And there's not enough people who are Black physicians, Black male physicians, there's not enough Black physicians, period, to take care of the entire Black community. Right. So the likelihood that you're going to be taking care of someone who's not a part of the community is so high. So I know it's coming from a place of love, right? When our white professionals, right, ask like, oh, can I attend this conference? Is this something that, because one, they don't want to feel like they're encroaching on a space that, is deemed safe and comfortable. And they just generally want to know, right? I say this all the time, especially in my Lunch and Learn community. You don't have to be Black to be able to take care of the Black community, right? And in fact, the likelihood that you're not going to be non-Black taking care of the Black community is super high, right? So if you have any reservations on, is this a conference for me? The answer is likely yes. Right? Because it means that, hey, I know I'm taking care of a significant population, and I know I don't understand the nuances. I may not understand every concerns or gripes, but I may need to be in a place to educate myself, right? And what better place to educate yourself on the community you're taking care of than an organization, than an event that's centered on the community you're taking care of. More importantly, right, especially for my professionals, we provide, continuing education credits as well, too, right? How is it deemed? Because I know it's different in the medical term. What is the?
It's CEs, so continuing education hours. I am MBCC approved to provide such hours to our clinical community. So we're offering 10 hours for this event, 10 live hours for this event. However, I've known teachers, physicians who have taken our certificate of attendance and been able to get credits approved by their board because we talk about so many things and we have so many different professionals who present at our conference.
Because I think sometimes they think, unknowingly, that because it's a conference centered on kind of the Black experience, that we wouldn't have like professionals like educating us, right? Like we wouldn't be able to provide CE hours if we didn't have, like a certain bar from an educational standpoint. So yes, you're going to get some personal story. Yes, you're going to get, a way of thinking, but it's going to be done by people who are in the field, who are professionally in the field, education level. Like there's a certain level that you got to have just to even speak at a conference.
Exactly. Time and time again, we talk about how oftentimes our voices are not centered at the table because people don't understand that we can have that duality, right? 90% of our speakers are neurodivergent and they also are working in the field. So that's how we have the ability to provide such a high level of lived experience along with that professional. I myself am a licensed therapist, but I'm also autistic, right? So my lived experience also blurs in with my professional experience. I have 3 kids who are neurodivergent, right? So we're talking from places of our lived experience and we're combining it with our professional because oftentimes, especially my professionals out there, that this is not the type of quality of information you're getting in your programs. You're not understanding the intersectionality when it comes to being Black and autistic, right? You're not having people who are actually living this life and being able to tell you about what it's like living this life in your program. So that's what makes us unique and different.
It is happening April 11th to the 13th. It is going to be such a beautiful experience. It's just one of those events that occur, that come around, and you're asking yourself like, man, where was this 5 years ago, 10 years ago? And every single year, we continue to find new people, right, who learn about the organization, who learn about the event in one way, shape, or form, which brings me joy because it lets me know something that we started, 7 years ago, that we weren't sure how many people were affected by it. We knew it was like, all right, like surely there's got to be other people having trouble. And to see the number of people who learn about us, who are like, oh, you'd be great for this, or especially shout out to our Facebook community and Instagram community, where they may see like an ad or video or something that you post, and then they'll tag one of their friends, right? And say, hey, like, do you know about this? Have you heard about this? Like, are you going to this? Like, I'm seeing people say like, hey, we have to be here.
Yes.
Right. And that is such a heartwarming, right, feeling to know that essentially kind of answered the call on 7 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line will have such significant effects moving forward.
Exactly. So we hope that you guys come. I mean, this year is going to be, every year is good, but this year is going to be a different feeling. We've added so many different aspects, and we have an amazing MC, Quinn Conyers. We have an amazing DJ, Calvin Creates. Our speakers are always top tier, top of the line since year one. So you're always going to get that with anytime you go to an Autism in Black event. But we really wanted to make sure those times where speakers are not speaking, that we are really still exciting the community. So we are super excited about this event. I mean, if you're attending in person, we have a sensory room, we have a VIP lounge, we have vendors who are going to be selling many amazing things. I know I can't wait to shop. So it's just going to be a different caliber of experience this year, and I'm very excited about it.
And where can people find you, follow you, kind of keep up to what you're doing? Because like I said, we do the conference, right? And typically when I have, y'all know, my legislative community who've been holding this down for years know that usually when I'm bringing my wife on, right, it's to talk about the Autism Black community. Where can people find you, follow you, right, patronize you, all that good stuff?
The easiest thing to do is to go to our website, autisminblack.org. Everything is on there, from our socials to conference tickets, conference recordings, our shop. So autisminblack.org.
So again, April 11th to the 13th, especially for those who are catching this live or catching this when it drops pre-conference. If you happen to catch this after the conference comes by, don't fret, because we tend to keep events going. So if it's not a conference, it's a summit. If it's not a summit, it's something else. It's a webinar, it's a speaking engagement, it's a community event. Like, that's really our goal, to make it so that when we think about Autism in Black, just the organization, that it's this year-round encompassing event that you can attend, that you can patronize, that you can just find support when, sometimes the support is lacking. So again, Maria, thank you for joining this week's Medicine Mondays.
Thank you for having me.